President,
Yes.
we want to talk about the record on this because
let's talk about
the framework here is that one third of the Republicans in this poll, one-third of the Republicans, and one-fourth of the people who say that they rather like you believe you're hiding something. Now, if you are, here's a chance to get it out.
You know what I'm hiding? What I told the President. That's the only thing. And I've answered every question put before me. Now, if you have a question, what is it? I do
have one.
Please.
I have one.
Please fire
You have
away.
said that if you had known, this was an arms for hostages swap, that you would have opposed it. You also said that you did not know that
May I answer that?
That wasn't a question. It was a statement.
Yes, it was a statement, and
Let me ask the question if I may first.
The President created this program, has testified or stated publicly he did not think it was arms for hostages. And it was only later that, and that's me, because I went along with it, because you know why, Dan? Because I worried when I saw Mr. Buckley, heard about Mr. Buckley being tortured to death, later admitted as the CIA chief. So if I erred on the side of trying to get those hostages out of there.
Mr. Vice President, you set the rules for this talk here. I didn't mean to step on your line there, but you insisted that this be live, and you know that we have a limited amount of time.
That's why I want to get my share in here on something other than what you want to talk about.
The President has spoken for himself. I'm asking you to speak for yourself, which you have not been willing to do in the past. And if I may suggest that this is what leads people to say, quote, either George Bush was irrelevant or he was ineffective. He said himself he was out of the loop. Now, let me give you an example. You said ask a question.
May I explain out of the loop? No operational role. Go ahead.
Now, you've said that if you'd known it was an arms for hostages swap, you would have opposed it. You said the first you knew it was an arms for hostages swap was in December of 1986,
when the whole thing became briefed to me by Senator Durenberger.
Exactly.
And the proximity of arms to hostages much closer.
But, Mr. Vice President, you went to Israel in July of 1986, and a member of your own staff, Mr. Craig Fuller, has verified, and so did the only other man there, Mr. Nir, Mr. Amiram Nir, who's the Israelis' top anti-terrorist man.
Yes.
Those two men were in a meeting with you, and Mr. Nir not once but three times underscored with you that this was a straight-out arms for hostages swap.
What they were doing.
Now,
Read the memo.
How do you
reconcile what they were doing?
How can you reconcile that you were there, Mr. Nir, underscored three separate occasions that it was an arms for hostages swap and told you were dealing with the most radical elements in Iran? You were dealing straight away with the Ayatollah Khomeini.
I was told what they were doing and not what we were doing, and that's the big difference. And Dan, I expressed my concerns and reservations about that. That has been testified to under oath by Mr. Poindexter, and it's been confirmed that I had reservations and spoke up by Don Regan. In fact, he said the other day that I expressed them to the President.
That's correct.
I don't discuss what I talk to the President because there's a principle involved. Nothing to do with Iran-Contra. It's the principle of confidentiality between the President and the Vice President.
Mr. Vice President, the President himself has said he wants all the facts out. He gave up such things as even his own diary. Every principle, including Secretary Shultz, he gave up some of it.
Well, Dan, let's be careful here because you're
yes, sir, I want you to be careful, Mr. Vice President, because the problem here is that you repeatedly said in the meetings, you said in a meeting in which Secretary Shultz, in the most forceful way, registered his objections. And then you said you never heard anybody register objections.
If it was the most forceful way, I've heard George Shultz be very, very forceful. And if I were there and he was very, very forceful at that meeting, I would have remembered that. I don't remember that.
Then how do you explain that you can't remember it and the other people at the meeting say he was apoplectic?
I wasn't there at that point.
You weren't in the meeting?
I'm not suggesting. I'm just saying I don't remember it.
I don't want to be argumentative, Mr. Vice President.
You do, Dan. No, this is not a great night because I want to talk about why I want to be president, why those 41% of the people are supporting me.
And Mr. Vice President, these questions are
judge a whole career. It's not fair to judge my whole career by a rehash on Iran. How would you like it if I judged your career by those 7 minutes when you walked off the set in New York?